Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Module 2D of my full Python course. If you've not enrolled, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. So today we're going to talk about, in my opinion, the worst data type in Python, which is a tuple. Now, it has its purpose, and a lot of people do use them. In fact, I use them. So why am I saying I don't like them? Well, the reason is because they're basically just a list, but not as good. And it's by design. But I find that that's not very useful most of the time. Let me show you what they are and why you would use them. So we have a list, for example, in contrast, the list of 1, 2, 3. That's the list of 1, 2, 3. We can ask the order to this thing. So there is an order. What is the first element, for example? Okay, it's 1. We can ask, what is the length of this thing? So len of that thing, well, it is 3. Okay, so we can do all of these things that we already know about. And so comparing this to a tuple, where we replace it with round brackets instead, this is the same thing, but the tuple of 1, 2, 3. All right, so it has an order. We can ask sub-0. What is the first element? It will tell us that. We can also have the length of this thing. It's still 3. And comparing that to a set, well, in sets you don't have duplicate items. I can also have 1, 2, 3, and 3, just like you could in a list. I could put that there as well. So they look like they're exactly the same thing as the list, and they're very close. But there's a key difference, which is you can't change the elements in a tuple. And in fact, we haven't even seen this in a list so far. I was purposely waiting for this lecture to show you. This is something else you would definitely do with a list, is change the elements that are in it. If I set the list equal to, say, the same list as above, 1, 2, 3, 3, I can say list sub-0 is equal to 5, which is that same thing as variable assignment, where it's like, okay, what is this variable? Well, it kind of treat this as a bit of a variable and saying, okay, in list sub-0, we're changing that to be 5. And so it's saying this thing, the 0th slot of this thing, assign this part to be 5. So then after I run that, list is 5, 2, 3, 3. So we can do that in a list. And if I was to try to do that same thing in a tuple, if I set t equal to the tuple of 1, 2, 3, and 3, and then if I tried to say t sub-0 is equal to anything, say 5, it says tuple object does not support item assignment. So it doesn't like that. And that is really the main difference between a tuple and a list. And so it's not going to have these same type of things, where we can't do t.pop to take off the last thing, because we can't change what's in there. So that's actually slightly different, is not only can we not change particular slots up here, we also can't even add or take away elements. It's always going to be this tuple. So we can't do .append to add stuff, we can't do .pop to take stuff off, we can't change what's in there. But what you can do is reassign the variable name. Because remember, t is just something that's saying like, okay, t is this pointing to, and we'll talk about that later, why I'm saying pointing, but t is kind of pointing to this round tuple of 1, 2, 3, 3. Well, we can point t or assign it to be something else. We could just say t is equal to, say, this other tuple. If we wanted to add an element to the tuple, you can't physically change this tuple, but you can always just make it be, and I'm going to replace this with t. So t is equal to t, so that tuple, plus, say, the tuple if we wanted to add 4 to the end, like that. So that's totally fine. Can only concatenate tuple and not int to tuple. Now, that's kind of weird, because the reason is this is not the tuple of 4. If I ask what the type of bracket 4 is, you'd think that's a tuple, except that's an integer, because actually it's saying parentheses, like this is the integer. It's the same type of thing. If you were doing like bedmass rules in math, you would want maybe 4 plus 2 to happen before the multiplied by 6. So really what that's doing is, if there's nothing in here, it's just, if it's 4, for example, then this is now the integer of 4 times 6. So what you would actually have to do is plus 4 comma. Okay, so now it's a tuple, and now it's totally happy with that. So you can concatenate this tuple. Sorry for the mess here, there seems to be a lot. But yeah, so you can do concatenation and tuples to change what the tuple is. You can never truly change it, but you can change it like this. You can't do pop or append or any of that other kind of list stuff. So why would you want to use it? Well, again, you always use something because the definition. If you want to never have to change this thing, then that's when you would use a tuple. But is that really true in practice? In practice, we really just do it because it's kind of like a two-element list, and you're not going to want to do the list operations on it. That's really the only reason we ever use it. It's just a simpler list. And so I kind of always think of the question, do we really need a tuple? I personally don't think we do, but you're going to see them. Whenever you see round brackets like that and commas, it means it's a tuple, and it's pretty much like a list. So that's the idea. I'm not going to use them too much in the course, but I probably will touch upon them every now and then, and I will see you in the next part of the module.